116K in craps. Before I do anything, I need to make sure the mic is working. So when people start rolling in, I can sit here and look at it and be like, hey, is my mic working? I think it's working, but I have no idea. This is my first time using it. It says it's all linked up. The battery is full. So it really just comes down to essentially like who's going to sit here and say, hey, it's working, hey, it's not. And anybody that comes in, I can sit here and go from there. I'm trying to also decide, like, should I show that? If I show that, though, I can't be in it. But if I show this, it's like, am I really even here? Yeah, just give it a minute. Like I said, 116K in craps. It's kind of weird. It's like big, far away. I need this for comments. But I'll just give it a second. Like I said, it was really weird. I should preface this with like, hopefully anyone who's in here can hear me. I don't know if this microphone works or not. I got this microphone today by Justice Jen, and I just don't know if the microphone works itself. It should, considering the fact that, I'd imagine so. The only thing I can do, I think, to see if it works or not is to like use my TV. Oh, it does sound good? All right, thanks, KG. Let's go. Okay, so, wow, that's awesome that it works. The biggest thing about, the 16K is like, let's get it out the rip first. So first of all, the purpose of the video was to show a couple of different methods on bad craps play. And so the bad craps play is saying, hey, the first one was $1,000 bankroll, $10 minimum. And it was going to show, hey, this isn't DGE, but I'm showing you that being overly aggressive doesn't mean you're going to come into profit. It just means that you're pushing the system so bad that it can go up one way or down one way. So originally, the $1,000 bankroll, it got zapped relatively quick. Then I went and said, hey, let's say we're not that drastic. We're not going to sit here and go from $1,000 to zero like this, holding on to your side rail, strap yourself into whatever chair you're sitting on because it's about to be a rough effing ride. All right. So we dialed down from that and said, okay, let's sit here and see what it looks like. Yeah, it's classified. Yeah, it is a loose. It wasn't even quasi DG. It wasn't DG at all. The whole purpose of it was to say, hey, you can't sit here and have a system in which you're putting that much pressure, i.e. 10% of your bankroll, even with $1,000 at a $10 table, and expect these miraculous results because it will always end in destruction. So the first bankruptcy, I was like, okay, let's say we're not going to be that aggressive. So the second form, which would be like, all right, we're going to be semi-aggressive, which I considered a higher tier of betting, but it's flat. So when I say flat, that means you're putting $500 on the don't. You're sitting here putting $500 across, and you're going to just let it ride forever and put pressure on that. So in that instance, it showed the second level, which the second level is this. You can't have a system that is completely flat betting at a higher level and expect to have these returns going. So just like anything, when I showed the level 1 and level 2, while playing, I'm like, hey guys, the biggest factor about doing these systems is that you're playing on a table that has random dice generations, random things happen. Okay, so because those random things happen, you have to account saying, hey, listen, just because a strategy is good, you can have bad days. And just because a strategy is bad, you can have good days. And so we're going through the system saying, hey, it's just not going to work out correctly, then we went to the third tier of trying to get this system to break. And I was like, hey, I'm going to give myself $5,000. And so instead of going somewhere where I'm like, hey, instead of doing a flat bet system on tier 2, instead of doing just balls of the walls gas in tier 1, let's throw in some DG aspects into tier 3 and see what happens. Well, realistically, when that stuff happens, a couple things happened. So number one, an immense long roll happened. Okay, I think only a second point. It was on a second point, immense roll. The third thing that happened is that because the bets were put out there, what I did was I was like, all right, if I was DGE, the first thing I'd say is you need to be at the minimum level. What I was trying to illustrate was that if you start at, let's say, a $500 don't pass or $600 or a $600 6 and 8 working, that can produce profit because you can hit for 700 and then come back down and do like a 440 inside, click back 360, and then you're right where you need to be. The problem with that is that come out sevens, 4 come out sevens, you're bankrupted. A string of come out, X, Y, and Z's, or just no 6s and 8s are hit, broken. If you're going to try to use a DGE strategy with a $3,000 odds against, or 2,000, 2,400, whatever the huge amount of odds is, if the point became a 9 or a 5, 4 or a 10, then you're putting so much on the don't that it'll bankrupt because there's only a level 1, level 2, level 3. So if you start out with a $1,200 action, and then you're trying to hedge even using DGE at that level with a 5K bankroll, you're just never going to get there. Like it doesn't math right because you're limiting yourself saying I can move 2 feet to the left, I can move 2 feet to the right, and if I get outside that range, I'm completely screwed. Now, the cool thing about that is that when I brought it up, what I was saying is like, once again, you can have bad behavior that pays off. You can have good behavior that bankrupts you. The sad part about craps is that people will sit here inherently get to the point where they're like, man, like I did this one monster roll one time with this betting strategy that I didn't really understand, and I made $5,000. And you're like, wow, that's amazing. And it cost him $100,000 over the course of his lifetime because now he's chasing that high. It's the same equivalent of a see a yo, bet a yo. I'm like, why do you do that? It's like, because like you just see a yo, you bet a yo. And I'm like, just because one time you got paid off on a bad bet doesn't mean it's a good bet. It just means you got paid off on a bad bet. So that in mind, the function of the third tier was to integrate DGE strategies, but mismanage money and bankroll management by doing too big of bets. And then eventually it was going to happen that a bad roll would happen, and then you just don't have any action to keep going. But if you're going to sit here and rise to the top by drinking to the bottom, you got to understand that things happen weird. So what happened in that instance is me trying to show myself losing money. That long roll happened, and then thousands of thousands of thousands of thousands of dollars kept popping out over and over and over again. So right now, let's talk about like what is the perfect count, if you could say. So, okay, well, I had a $600 6 and 8 working, boom, hit a 6 for 700, spread 440 across, and that 440 extended to $5,400 across. So you got to think, it took me times 10ing those bets and ramping up to get to that point. Now, just because in one shooter I was able to make $16,000 doesn't mean that that style of play is accurate. Like, yeah, winning $16,000 is awesome, but in the manner in which I did it, in the long run, if you're planning on playing craps ever again, that kind of behavior will cost you times 10 of that. So if I was saying, hey, yeah, I did something that was completely outside the norm that made $16,000, you have to understand that at the end of the day, that will cost me $160,000 over the course of 10 years because I'll keep chasing that kind of strategy. And guess what? Just like in tier 1 and in tier 2, there'd be 4 or 5 come out sevens. That's 600, 1,200, 1,500. 1,200. So 2 or 3 come out sevens. I'm down to $3,000 and then, or $2,000, and you're done. I mean, you're just done. So understandably, when people say you have to run perfect in order to get somewhere, it's instances like that. Now, in your mind, you're like, well, Charlie, you can sit here and say X, Y, and Z about what should, could, or would, but you made $16,000 on a strategy playing. That should offset everything that you just said because you're showing us live trying to refute it, and then you made money with it. The issue is that once again, dice is random. If dice is 6 over 36, and you're sitting here playing to that, and someone rolls 54 times, the odds of someone rolling 54 times without hitting a 7 is extraordinary. If you do 50 dice rolls without a 7 on a hybrid machine, they pay 300 to 1. So let's account that, let's just say, and I'm going to use some quick, simple math here because this is where thousands of dollars can go out the door or into your pocket, is when you bet on a 12, you get paid 30 to 1, and it's actually 36 to 1. So I'm just going to say that is the most loosest bet you can make on a craps table. So I'm going to take that a step further and say, hey, if the casinos account that that 6-1, 36-1 paid 30-1. That 6 is the house edge, which is an extreme house edge. Let's go ahead and put that into proportional math and say, hey, hot shooter bet, which is $1. If you go over 50 rolls, it pays, I believe, 300-1. So if you can do 50 rolls, they'll give you 300-1 payout. So using the exact same logic, I'm going to say that the odds of rolling that obviously are 360-1, which we already know that 1 out of every 360 shooters are potentially do that. That sounds about right. 1 out of every 360 shooters will roll 50 rolls. So in that aspect, instead of you saying, hey, I'm going to keep funneling money into a lottery type system of betting and just hoping that it'll work out one time, you can regress those bets down, be a little bit more conservative, and then you can sit here and just make $1,000 every day. And that's really the argument is that, hey, do you want to play an aggressive system that could cost you $10,000, but you make $20,000? Maybe. Or you can play a system that you'll never lose $5,000 or $10,000 and you'll just make $1,000 every day. For me, I would sit here, and I think a lot of people, like if I walked up an ATM and it handed me $100 a day, every time I walked up to it for free, I would show up there every day. It doesn't matter. It's like, well, I mean, I'm a millionaire and I wouldn't sit here. I was like, dude, if someone hands you $100 every day as a millionaire, you're still like, oh, okay. Boop. So you have to have that aspect of saying, hey, I'm going to sit here and do this, this, and this to keep those consistent wins going on because that builds up over time versus trying to do something miraculous one time to get one bet. Like, and then think about it. I mean, like, that's like saying, hey, I sold a house one time, I'm retired. Like, how about you just have a job that pays you consistently every year so you're not just balling broke after 2 years and spending your money, things happen. So, like, my argument is that, even when you're doing these crap systems and you're like, man, like, it's not going to work, you made $16,000, but, regardless of how you made that money, you made the money. I'm like, it's actually not. Like, it's a bad behavior. Just like if you were speeding and an officer pulled you over and handed you a lollipop and drove away, you're like, that'll never happen again. But it happened that time. So the exception doesn't prove the point. And then a lot of times, just like anything else, what is craps? It's a number generator. It's math. And weird things happen in math. Just like you look up into the sky, or a better thing about math, it's like just because you take a cup and fill up some ocean water in the cup and swish it around and say, I don't see a whale in here, so there must be no whales in the ocean. It's the same thing with probability. Like, you got to put it in simple terms for yourself. Weird things can happen, absolutely. There is a possibility that you could take 2 dice and roll 112s in a row. And I'm sure at one point in the world, over the course of millions of years, if you kept cranking out numbers, there will be a time where you sit here and have 112s rolled in a row. But are you going to plan your entire betting strategy off 100 rolls of 12? No. I guarantee you that someone one day, eventually, just because the way math is, you're going to roll 20 points. Are you going to bet the don't because someone rolls 20 points? Absolutely not. Are you going to bet the pass line hoping that someone's going to roll 20 points? I think there's an assumption of that there's a hope that you're going to do that, but I don't see it. And also add the fact that even in the gambit of making $16,000, when I finally did 7 out, $5,400 did get taken up by the house. So that means theoretically, I made $20,800. So, I mean, look how huge that is. So, like, even when I won, the proportionality is if that monster roll was true, which it was, if that monster roll happened, you're still every step of the way. I'm saying every dollar I make, I'm getting charged 33% to keep this funneling going. If we're in real estate, that'd be lateraling. You and Sally Mae would be out there in 2004 crashing systems, okay? Like, I'm not here to play a housing market crisis out here on a craps table. I'm here to sit here and make money consistently. I'm also not going to a job that I could die every day, which people do, and they're compensated for, and they know the risks involved. And if you ask those people who put the risk out there and say, hey, officer, hey, soldier, hey, firefighter, hey, EMT, bomb diffuser, if I give you the option to have a less riskier day today or a more riskier day, but for a little bit more money, odds are, unless you're a roofer, you're probably going to pick like, well, I'd rather do the less riskier option. I'd rather not go to the 9th floor of a 24 floor building that's on fire. I'd rather go to the 1 floor building on fire. So, and that might, like say, I'm using different analogies so you can really just drive it home that at the end of the day, like you can't sit here, hold on. If you were playing DG on that roll, would you have gone back on the roll on a certain point? Would you have gotten back in on the roll at a certain point? Absolutely not. Like the thing about conservative betting is that it's always the affirmation of enough. When I say enough is that usually if you ask yourself, like, how much land is enough? You're like, well, I can afford. I'm like, no, not afford. Money's not an issue. How much land do you want to have? And there's no object. And if you say someone's like 100 acres, like you don't want any more than 100 acres. Some people say 1,000 acres. Some people say 10,000 acres. But some people will say there's not enough land on earth that I would sit here and go. And to translate that into gambling or translate that into craps or kind of money marketing or money management, it means that you are never going to stop, collect, and then settle because you already just said it'll never be enough. A lot of power press players have that issue because they have this weird sensation of it's never enough. I will keep pressing until I can't press anymore and I'll figure out a way to keep pressing. And that mentality right there is toxic because you're going into the maelstrom without any kind of sails and you're just letting the current flip you around. And most of the time in the maelstrom, you're going to get sunk. But there's some dinghies that will sit here and make it. So you just don't really know like what's going to happen in that aspect. So the question of is DGE at any point getting back in the roll? In my opinion, when you have those instances, let's say if I hit 2 or 3 times, turned off, and then that roll happened, I wouldn't get back on because if I get back on, I'm like, well, I'm missing the roll. Now, in terms Dice Vice is what I've done when I'm up a couple $1,000s, which is I do like a $300. Let's just say put it in more proportions to me. If I was up $1,500 and I was sitting here knowing I'm going to be here for a little bit longer, I might do a $300 6 and 8. Boom, hit it for 350, spread that out on the numbers, and slowly ramp it up by 1 unit 3 times, 2 unit 3 times, 4 units 3 times, and just make simple math. So in a DG strategy where it does happen when you do a 7-7, 6 and 8 working for a 7-7 press, I hit for a big amount, I reduce and regress, I offset it with a hedge, and then I would go from there. Now that happens all the time. So to answer your question is that if it was a pure strict DGE value, I would have to be in a profit of $1,500 to make that kind of play. And on top of being on that profit for $1,500, I would have to sit here and slowly inch it up. And to be honest with you, like even if I had if I had say a $30, if the point was a 6 and I had $25 on the 5, $30 on the 8, and $25 on the 9, by the time I got to like the $60 and $90 level, I would hit and probably regress it back down to $25. It ran back up. I'd hit the 90, 100 range and regress it back down. So it always gets these levels where I was like hitting and bring it back down. So I couldn't maximize on those big rolls. I'd have made some money, but by the end, I'd have lost in that scenario one of the minimums on the place bets. It wouldn't matter by the second point because I'd sit here and have the odds against it on the don't. So I know that aspect would have made up and reconciled itself out. But I mean, realistically, like you're thinking about $5,400 across and down. Like I probably would have gotten up to a couple $100. Let's just say $400 or $500 in that monster roll. If I was in the instance of profit, if I was on the instance of doing a $300 6 and 8 working to hit and reduce down to like $80 on the inside minus the point, those factors would have came about and I would have ramped it up like that because it would have been a hit for profit as a stab, a regression down to just enjoy the day and see if I can get some long rolls going. Hits the point eventually. I'd go into the don't with another recovery of what happened on the don't for the hedge. Then I'd have came back and I'd have said, all right, I'm just letting it go because it's regressing anyway. And then after that long succession of rolls, I probably wouldn't have had a lot of odds on the 6, but those points would have still ramped themselves up. But it's a hard question to say because like anything else, if you guys were saying, hey, Charlie, I'm going to go home and do the same roll that you did, that was the monster roll, the first thing you'd say is like, well, I already know it's coming, so I can sit here and, make $1 million on it. Well, not really because the max bet's 3,000, but essentially you would know mentally, say, okay, I'm going to do, 2, 4, let's just say $4,400 inside starting out, max it up to 3,000 and see what 50, 60K looks like. And to give you kind of the excitement that hasn't happened to me in a while, which is a really good bonus, I think, is just the fact that like I had to do twice, had to go get more chips because I'm playing usually at $1,000 level, $5,000 level for these videos. and I just randomly clicked back a 20K. There was 20,000 or 25. There's probably 20. Yeah, there was. There was like $25,000 on the table. Now, did I make it or not? Maybe not. But the house needed 25,000 to get all going. I mean, 21,000, and I was still paying. So by the end, I had to come back and make sure I had 50,000 because that roll could keep going. Now, if you're a dice influencer or a dice shooter, or if you believe in superstition, you could say, well, Charlie, you kind of iced yourself because you sat here and stopped twice mid-roll to go play house somewhere. I'm like, fair enough point if you believe in that certain thing. But hey, man, que Sarah. In that one moment, I wasn't thinking about this video saying, I made $16,000. How cool is that as a YouTuber? I was like, maybe one day. I was like, you know what? I'd be so lucky. It'd be so lucky if I recorded on a live with everyone watching a record-breaking run. Because I think every person dreams of that. They want to be the person that says, hey, that person rolled 155 times on here. So, and like, it's kind of interesting because so many craps YouTubers roll, and yet none of us have gotten close to, anything near what's the record. So if you could get to 120 rolls, I don't even know what would happen. So, that's kind of explaining that entire situation that happens. It's 21 minutes. I know I was on it for an hour, but that kind of shows you the mentality of that, and be wary of it. Don't just sit here and watch a video and say, wow, he did that one time. That's what I'm going to do every time. Bad logic to have. So it's 21 minutes in. Does anyone, some people watching have any questions, any concerns? Is the mic doing all right? Because this is a brand new mic. It's the first time I've used it. Just let me know. I think I can walk down the road and y'all can still hear me on this mic, which is really cool. I mean, just all things considered, it's super cool. But yeah. So any questions y'all have, I can just chill out here for a little bit. Probably take a drink. The vodka fruit punch is really just making it work, man. But could be just water. Might just be water. I was very hungover this morning. And also mind the fact that it's been fourth video of the day. That rarely happens. But it's mainly because I'm not going to record on the weekend. So this is something y'all can mull over. Twice in one day. I know, Mid-Atlantic. So, that right there, in the session that I just explained, in the session that I'm talking about, which, I'm sure I'm going to catch hell in the Discord because I missed 2. Well, I did 2 videos of me playing, and this is the 2 Q&As after the video. So it's kind of weird that I know that, these are getting so mismatched, but at the same time, I'm just trying to sit here and just push it out. And mainly the reason why is because I really am trying to really drive home some of the things that I think that get lost in the translation with DGE strategies. So I'm just trying my best to kind of get it more and more and more active in the sense of hey guys, be conservative, be patient. Now, winning $16,000 on one shooter is obviously counterproductive to that kind of goal. But the biggest thing about winning that money is also validating a couple of points. And I think that it's not always about what you do, it's how you do it. And I want to say right now, I want to sit here and do a color up or a big AZ or wager me this or the big YouTubers. I want to put out a catchy title, and it is a catchy title. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's not something to be celebrated. It's something ironic. It's something that's comical. It's something that's very satirical. But understand there's not value in it. And I mean that in the most honest sense possible. Don't look at that and say, there's something there that Charlie has missed and I can sit here and capitalize on that and make 16,000. No. It just shows that sometimes dice is random, that crazy things happen, but in no way did anything about that system show consistency. There's nothing about that roll that showed any kind of forethought. There's nothing about anything that happened inside that entire crazy whirlwind of action that denoted anything that could be learned, repeated, and done again. And I mean that with all sincerity because you want to sit here and say, hey, don't take from it the bad stuff. Take the good stuff, which isn't the winning part. It's the lesson to be learned. Just don't take the bad stuff and run with it because it'll just cost you in the end, plain and simple. I mean, that's all. That's really it. So it's 25 minutes. I got like 5 minutes left, and then I'm out for the weekend. It's a happy Friday kind of thing. But if you guys have any questions for a 5 minute answer, I am down for it. I hope you guys like the mic. I just got it in today on Amazon. It looks really cool, especially because I think the range on it is like 600 feet. So I could have a camera and like go somewhere else. It's actually kind of ironic as well because I don't have a camera. I don't have like a tripod or something like that that moves with me. It's really just like the cheapest tripod ever. But I love it, So, you know, at the end of the day, and then now I'm standing. I think I like standing more than I do sitting on the desk and try to talk to you or sitting in the chair. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. This week has been a lot of shows. I will say happy Friday. Sounding great, loud and clear, perfect. I will say to you guys as a form of announcements, I've already said it in one. This actually is really like, I'm not saying it in the Discord yet. I'm trying to see how many dice people pick it up. I actually have 2 instances where we can meet. And so, oh, thank you. The dice link, the video linked view. Good. I think we're going to try to do something like that where I have two things going at the same time that show like the long length, which, obviously I use half, and then also the short length, but the horizontal view. But 2 things are happening. I'm letting y'all guys know. I don't know the exact details, but if you're watching this random video on a random Friday, by God, you're more of a degenerate than I am because I couldn't stand to see my face over and over and over again. But if you have some free time, I do know that I will be at Hard Rock Seminole, the one that's shaped like a guitar. I will be at that casino in April, and I can do a little impromptu meetup because I'm going down there for a bachelor party. It'd be cool to meet up with guys because we could just have a drink thing. And then, believe it or not, guys, my bachelor party is coming up. It's going to be the 3rd week of June. I'm going to take about 5 days. But one of those days, I will be in Cherokee, North Carolina. So once I know, I'm like, hey, guys, I mean, it's obviously not going to be a whole weekend bender. But if you want to come down to Cherokee for a full day of gambling, I will be there playing craps. You'll see my brother. You see a bunch of my friends. And like I said, they're all, once again, a bunch of degenerate gamblers too. My brother isn't. I mean, he plays nickel and dime poker a dove day, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, I mean, that's going to get put out eventually, but it's going to be one of those things very much like, hey guys, what's going on? Might play for a couple hours. At least for my bachelor party. When we're down in Florida, though, I do know that's going to be like the first 2 days is all casino. The next 4 days is going to be like half casinos, like half casino time, and then half getting belligerently drunk and stuff. So is what it is. Thanks, Emiliana, for congratulating me. I appreciate it. And so, I will say this, I understand that especially when it comes to craps, it's a lonely road because everyone has different opinions about how to play it. And then also, gambling can lead you down a pretty bad path that puts you in a lot of strife elsewhere. However, gambling has brought, at least me, and this is a side note because I've been talking about the bad things that can happen in good roles, but let's just talk about craps so the good things happen. I've met a lot of great friends on here. I think the community of craps, just like any community, you get a good group gathering. It doesn't matter what video or what live thing is happening. You'll find enough cool people that'll sit here and do X, Y, and Z with you, and it's awesome. So don't fret if you sit here and say, well, my craps game isn't like this person, or I wish that my craps game was like that person. Understand this community and the craps community here on YouTube, Discord, all the crazy things that we have is on the whole, everyone here is trying to win a little bit of money, have a lot of fun, break the system, and cost the casino money. It's never been about player versus player. It's been about casino versus player. So understand if you see something that you particularly like, I was like, my face looks weird. But if you see something that you particularly like, run with it, steal it. When I say steal it, absorb it, adopt it as your own, put that into your lexicon and put that into your strategy and work with it. And I guarantee you that the people that you see commenting, the people that you see in your community, if you want to learn how to play craps, are going to be there to absolutely help you. I've never met a bunch of people that would come together and say, hey, let's roll together. Let's practice together. And I hate to say it because I've said her name like 17 times this morning, but like Justice Jen has flown across this country and hung out with a bunch of craps YouTube meetups. And, to have that kind of fellowship and camaraderie is amazing. So that's 29 minutes, 40 seconds by the time I end this. So, I know that I'm on the dark side of craps. I know I'm a math guy, and I'm also young and impressionable for all kinds of ways. But at the end of the day, guys, like I love this community. I love everything about it. And, at the end of the day, just find your click and roll with it. And if you can't do that, the good news is I'll be here to see you and mop you up and realistically just drink with you. So this is Charlie from Drunk Guy Explains. I'll check you guys next time. Press stop.